We are so very delighted to welcome you to the fourth annual International Conference of the Gray School of Applied Diplomacy at DePaul University, entitled Urban Diplomacy and City Diplomacy, from the Micro to the Macro. My name is David Wellman, and I have the honor of being the director of the Gray School. The mission of the Gray School is to train future practitioners of diplomacy across all vocations, from those pursuing careers in the Foreign Service to those who want to build bridges as NGO leaders, private sector actors, scientists, artists, religious leaders, community organizers, and activists. Our goal is to create cohorts of students with a wide range of vocational trajectories who engage the study and practice of diplomacy together, and in so doing, establish networks that they will take with them as they pursue or redirect their respective careers upon graduation. The origins of this conference are found in the origins of the Gray School itself. In 2017, the group of DePaul faculty charged with designing the curriculum of the Gray School recognized that our identity as an urban university was an invitation to create a program that examines diplomatic acts which take place within the boundaries of a single city, acts which may or may not have national or even international implications. This is why we developed the first diplomatic studies program in the world, which features a concentration both our BA and MA students can pursue, which we call urban diplomacy. This field of study invites us to identify and learn from practitioners of diplomacy who work with institutions and among people on the ground, and who employ their skills and insights to address the challenges we face in the cities in which we live. In Chicago, these challenges include economic inequality, racism, segregation, and violence. While many people are quick to point out that cities are incubators of innovation, the faculty who designed our curriculum realized that even more time needs to be spent examining the work of community leaders and activists, who we see as citizen diplomats, and who are among the most important incubators and propagators of such innovation. That is because the work which truly has the capacity to produce sustainable changes within a city requires core diplomatic skills, including community building, the promotion of active listening and collaboration, the visualization of outcomes which have not yet been realized, and of course, successful communication. Such work also requires the ability to enter into liminal spaces or in-between spaces, where many people are disinclined to go. It is in such a dimension that diplomats of all stripes fashion spaces where people are invited to cross boundaries of difference and work together to create outcomes no one individual or group could have managed to achieve on their own. The urban diplomats who will appear at this conference reflect this fact and come from a wide variety of vocations, thus wonderfully representing the transprofessional reality of contemporary diplomacy. Of course, our conference does not only seek to examine urban diplomacy, it also seeks to examine with new eyes a very well-established subfield of diplomatic studies, city diplomacy, an area of study through which such pioneering scholars as Michelle Acuto and Saskia Sassen have noted that cities themselves, as they diplomatically project themselves beyond their borders, are both national and international diplomatic actors of consequence. Among the city diplomats who will appear at our conference are those who are responsible for diplomatically representing Mexico City, Paris, and Chicago. Of course, in this day and age, it is not only those in mayors' offices who perform this work. 21st century connectivity now affords the opportunity for ostensibly less powerful groups and individuals to also play this role in their city's national and international representation. Yet while these two distinct dimensions of diplomacy, urban diplomacy and city diplomacy, are themselves each worthy of individual, focused examination, our conference seeks to do more than that. To this end, our time together over the next 2 days is an effort to ask how these two expressions of diplomacy affect one another, and what could be achieved if urban diplomats and city diplomats worked together more closely, learned from one another, and collaborated in ways which help to address not only the problems people face within a single city, but also the extraordinary challenges we collectively face, both nationally and internationally. On this theme, we at the Gray School have noted with special interest the U.S. Secretary of State's appointment of Ambassador Nina Hashigian as the first special representative for city and state diplomacy. Ambassador Hashigian leads the State Department's recently established unit for city and state diplomacy, which spearheads efforts to engage local partners, foster connections among cities in the United States and abroad, and to develop partnerships designed to address key issues facing cities and the local actors who live within them. While our headlines are currently dominated largely by unfolding state-centric conflicts, less attention is being paid to the pivotal diplomatic roles practitioners of urban and city diplomacy are playing to both mitigate the results of war and build what could arguably be seen as foundations for future cooperation and peace building. The war between Ukraine and Russia, for example, has resulted in the largest migration of refugees in Europe in the post-World War II era, numbering over 5 million people. While nation-state leaders can agree to welcome refugees as a matter of policy, it is people on the ground, quite often in cities, who are charged with manifesting that welcome. And it is those same local actors who will arguably determine whether or not such a welcoming can remain sustainable over the long term. As we witness the unfolding war in Israel-Palestine, we should also be attentive to the contributions being made by practitioners of urban and city diplomacy in both Palestinian and Israeli cities. The creativity required to visualize and ultimately secure a just and lasting peace may already be emerging from intimate acts of diplomacy located in urban settings, those incubators of visualization and transformation I mentioned earlier. In the short term, many of these grassroots actors are focusing on securing aid and support for those who have lost loved ones and those seeking safety in the midst of incredible violence. This morning, I've been reading a text thread whose contributors are members of the Vienna-based Muslim-Jewish Conference, a citizen diplomat group which makes a space for Muslims and Jews, including Israelis and Palestinians, to listen to each other, support each other, and work together to make that space larger. This morning, we at the Gray School want to lift up such creativity, tenacity, and willingness on the part of those citizen diplomats who take on such work and who visualize a future so many others cannot. Like every conflict, every city is unique, with a unique set of circumstances, a unique history, and a unique set of diplomatic actors who help determine the shape and contour of political realities, as well as the way that we interpret them. For this reason, our conference includes roundtables examining urban and city diplomacy in 6 different locations around the world: Mexico City, Chicago, Paris, Nicosia, Nairobi, and Bethlehem. The speakers on each roundtable were almost entirely selected by individuals who live in each city being represented. And I wish to express our profound gratitude to this group of what we have been referring to as our roundtable curators. These include Kostas Konstantinou in Nicosia, Rafael Tisblat in Paris, Antonio Alejo in Mexico City, and Samson Apondo, who curated our Nairobi panel. The generous contributions of this extraordinary group have made this conference possible. The Gray School's growing global cohort includes scholars and practitioners from around the world, and I would like to express our gratitude to the many people among this group who helped make this conference happen. I would also like to especially thank our colleague Mildred Santiago, who has played such a pivotal role in both logistically and in terms of communication in laying the groundwork for our conference. I also want to express my gratitude to Jeffrey Wiseman, our endowed professor of applied diplomacy, for all of his help in visualizing this conference and reaching out to our collaborators with invitations to participate. In addition, I want to thank Manda Signore, who heads our IT team and who makes our virtual conference possible, and Evelyn Gerhardt, her colleague. I also want to thank Emir Klebich, who oversees our social media. And most especially, I want to thank our students, who come to us from so many places around the world, who inspire us, and who are the reason why we hold conferences. Over the next 2 days, we will be hearing how diplomacy is understood and defined by practitioners and scholars from North America, Latin America, Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. While none of our panelists can speak for entire regions, they do offer us the opportunity to reflect on the many ways diplomacy is defined in different geographic contexts, and how every context in which diplomacy is practiced offers us new lessons and new opportunities to expand our understanding of the field. Today, we will be hearing from 3 different cities, beginning with Nicosia, Cyprus. Nicosia, which is divided by a green line which separates its Greek and Turkish sides, offers us a wonderful window into the opportunities and challenges faced by diplomats whose work aims to build bridges among urban citizens of different identities. This panel will include both Greek and Turkish Cypriots who endeavor to build such bridges. Our second panel will connect with us from Paris and include 2 grassroots diplomats and a representative from the office of the mayor of Paris, Anne Hidalgo, who is charged with helping to lead her city's efforts to project itself diplomatically to the world. This panel will be followed by a keynote address by the president of the oldest NGO in Chicago focusing on citizen diplomacy. And our day will conclude with a roundtable of Chicago diplomats, including 2 NGO leaders and the chief of policy for Mayor Brandon Johnson.